A really warm welcome to everyone who's joined this webinar today. So welcome to our IOSH members, our CBRE employees and our CBRE clients. I'm really pleased to say that CBRE, working in partnership with IOSH, is ecstatic to it and provide you an insight on how CBRE, as a large leading global real estate company, is managing the COVID-19 pandemic, not just for our business, but also in support of our clients. So I'd like just to introduce our three speakers for today. There's myself, Hazel Kleiman. I'm the head of HSC for our business Global Workplace Solutions in Asia Pacific. We have Sarah Davidson, who's head of our HSC for our property management business, covering Asia Pacific, and also Ling Lam, who is our HSC manager for Global Workplace Solutions based in Hong Kong. So just to take you through today's agenda, it's pretty packed. Hopefully we're going to go through our current status in relation to COVID-19, so setting the scene. Then I'm going to take you through the pandemic management that CBRE has implemented for our business and for our clients. I'm going to take you through some of our key insights with regards to BC planning. And Ling is then going to take us through how we've been managing wellness and well-being in this prolonged situation with many staff and obviously your staff as well working from home, and a little bit about our training program that we've put together for COVID-19. And then Sarah's going to take us through the returning to the workplace. So CBRE obviously has a business in China, which is now in recovery, and we have reoccupied and reopened facilities in China. So we're going to look at some of the lessons learned in doing that. Then, as Ben mentioned, we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you do have any questions for us, please put them in the Q&A box and we'll get through as many of those questions as we can. So let's just start talking about what is COVID-19. As we're probably all aware, back in the 31st of December 2019 was the first case of this new virus. It's part of the coronavirus family, which ranges really from the common cold right the way through to SARS and MERS. As we've gone along in the last 15 weeks working on this pandemic, it has been an evolving situation. And as we've gone through, we are learning more and more about this virus. And it's really important to be aware of how this virus acts and the signs and symptoms so that you can put in place, obviously, new protocols. So from a perspective of symptoms, we now know that the symptoms can range from very, very mild symptoms, but generally they present themselves as a fever of 38 degrees Celsius or above. You tend to have respiratory problems or symptoms. So as an example, a dry cough, a shortness of breath, and also associated tiredness. Unfortunately for some people, due to maybe their ill health and their age, they can experience serious impacts on their health, and unfortunately in some cases it can lead to fatality. But bearing in mind that it generally presents with a fever, through the pandemic process, CBRE has implemented temperature screening, and we've done this extensively through our Asia Pacific business on our sites, our CBRE offices, and also on behalf of our clients. The other thing we know about COVID-19 is it does have the ability to live on surfaces. We think for about 3 days, particularly on plastics, and as a result of this, CBRE has developed a pandemic and infectious disease cleaning standards, which includes disinfectant, which we've deployed to our CBRE offices and also to our client sites. The other thing we know about COVID-19 is it generally is transmitted in droplet form from person to person. And as a result of this, we have developed some personal hygiene standards and mask standards, again, which we have deployed across our CBRE offices and also for some of our client sites. I'm going to take you through our COVID-19 protocols, but before I do that, I think it's really important to talk about our guiding principles. So from the very beginning of this pandemic, CBRE has taken the health and safety of our people, which includes our contractors, our clients, our visitors, as of the utmost priority. So everything we do, whether it's providing essential services during a lockdown period, or whether it's reviewing BCPs, we only do this in a safe manner. We also recognise this is a prolonged situation. We have many people that are working from home for weeks, if not months, and we have some frontline staff that are basically delivering essential services in empty buildings. So we do realise it takes a toll on the individual, and this creates a level of uncertainty and anxiety for our staff and for our clients. And the most important thing is that we provide assurance and are transparent on how we're addressing the issues and the decisions we're making, whether that's reopening our offices and facilities, or whether, as I say, it's reviewing our BCPs. So now I'm going to take you through the COVID-19 protocols, which have been developed by CBRE. So everything we do is based around these protocols. So the first one is about preventing the spread. We want to make sure that we assist not just CBRE as an organisation, but our clients, but also the communities that we work in to prevent the spread and transmission. We also want to make sure that we effectively communicate all our decisions, our actions, our protocols with our teams that are working on sites for clients, with our clients as well, and in some cases with the general communities that we operate within. We've prepared our CBRE officers. Obviously, for some of you on this call who may be dialing in from the UK or from the EMEA region, you're probably a little bit less in the journey that we're on. So we have reopened sites, and Sarah is going to talk about that at the end of this talk. And we also have unfortunately had to respond. So we had situations where we've had contaminated sites, where there have been confirmed cases or highly suspected cases of COVID-19, and we've had to deploy our evacuation protocols and also our contact tracing. So let's start with just talking about how do we and why should we flatten the curve. So as we look at today's figures, we're nearly at 2 million cases globally. So 1,990,254. The good news is, though, that there's 478,932 that have recovered. So that's the good news. But the reason why we need to reduce the spread, or what we call flatten the curve, is the impact that this virus has on our healthcare systems. So as I mentioned earlier on, for people who may be elderly, 70 or over, or have significant underlying medical conditions, they may end up in a situation where they need an intensive care bed or a ventilator. If the cases, the new cases coming through are high and those cases are recovering, you get an incline. So if you can look at this graph in front of you now on the slide, as you can see that China has successfully flattened that curve. There are only a few number of cases coming through on a daily basis now. South Korea is in the same situation. We are seeing that, and it's early days, but possibly the Pacific region as well is flattening that curve. How unfortunately, as we can see, the USA is still on incline, so is unfortunately Spain, Italy, UK and Germany, and this is having a massive impact in the healthcare systems in those countries. Additionally, from an organisational perspective, we don't want everyone to get this virus at the same time. So we want to make sure that everything we do is preventing the spread. So how do we do that? So the most important thing is personal hygiene and social distancing. As we said earlier on, this is droplet transmitted. So where we can, we have encouraged our staff through our protocols, our COVID-19 awareness videos, to ensure that they do basic personal hygiene, such as washing hands for more than 20 seconds with soap and water. We've also deployed, where required, personal protective equipment. We've put in place social distancing in not only just our offices, but also through our client sites and also transport. And we've also developed protocols, for example, our Travel on Health Declaration, which addresses those high exposure risks, whether somebody has been in contact with a confirmed case, is a highly suspected case with symptoms, and obviously put them into self-quarantine or isolation. From early on, CBRE launched a new travel policy. So we were limiting travel across our globe, across our company, and this was essential because, as we've seen through COVID-19, certain countries have had spikes, and this has been as a result, a direct result of imported cases. As I mentioned earlier on, we know that COVID-19 does last on contact services, and therefore we have developed a protocol which includes disinfectant as well. All of these are the aim to prevent spread. As I mentioned earlier on, it's very important that we inform our teams and we're completely aligned on what these new protocols are and how do they implement them. CBRE has a very structured way for crisis management, and I have another slide that will take you through that in more detail. We also have operational and functional groups operating in most of the markets, and we're at the regional. So as an example, through the situation, there has been supply chain concerns or challenges in relation to masks, hand sanitizers, clean disinfectants, etc. And therefore we had set up functional leadership in regard to supply chain, where we've looked at import-export and legislation around that. We've also had a lot of policy change in relation to people management. So we have a senior leadership people or HR group that meets daily to obviously update across the countries and across the globe as to new protocols we're putting in place. From a HSE SME perspective, we also have weekly touchdowns where we're gaining best practice across our client sites, but also aligning on what those new protocols are. We have very tight communication plans which allow us to make quick decisions and quick approvals. Our crisis management team structure is based on a country level, and then at a regional level and at a global level. And the countries are empowered to make decisions quickly and, where required, implement new processes. However, all the escalations go up to our global executive crisis management team so that we're aligned in any new global policies and processes that we need to implement. As I've mentioned, through the last 15 weeks, we've had an incredible amount of new protocols that we have done. One of the most important ones has been our travel and health declaration process, where the people group have been alerted, or HR group have been alerted to those people that have been in close contact with or are a confirmed case, or a highly suspected case with symptoms, or have travelled previously to a COVID-19 hotspot. They've put in place employee welfare, also case management. We have one source of truth within CBRE, and that is our global pandemic and infectious disease site, which is housing all our new protocols, processes, training, etc., so that everybody has the latest. We have put in place COVID-19 training, which I'll let Ling talk about in more detail, which allows our employees, supervisors and managers to understand how to manage this situation. I'm going to touch a little bit on preparing our sites. So through this process, we have reviewed our own BCPs and also assisted our clients. We've identified essential services, so we are providing essential services even in a lockdown situation, and we've had to put in contingency staffing plans. Some of our sites have been closed fully, partially reopened, and therefore we have developed shutdown startup processes. So from a BCP perspective, I think it's really important to think about scenarios that you're going to come across. And some of you may be further in your journey than others, but our scenarios generally are around these 7. So the first one is an alert level rise. So that's when a country declares that the number of cases have exceeded an alert level response, and that's been the first point where we've implemented and reviewed our BCP. Along that, we look at essential services that we need to deliver. We look at how we can do that, whether it's we need to have contingency staff. We split our teams generally into at least 2, if not 4, so that if there is a COVID-19 case, it doesn't affect the whole workplace. We have mandated working from home for non-essential staff. We have, as I said, put in travel bans. We have strongly encouraged our clients and in our CBRE offices to put in that social distancing. We have closed meeting rooms, we have removed desks from our sites, and we've even restricted our transport seating arrangements. We have suspended in some of our sites hot desking and have allocated desking as an example. The other sort of scenarios that would trigger your BCP or for BCP review would be your schools shutting down. You need to provide extra support for your employees that now have got children working at home. We also have protocols for when we have a CBRE employee that may be a confirmed or suspected case. Equally, we have those for our clients as well. Really important through the COVID-19 is to keep up to date on your government advisories. This was written 2 days ago and is already out of date. We have noticed obviously now in China, which is in recovery, all states and provinces, including Wuhan, are up and running. However, for the rest of Greater China, we've still got social distancing measures put in place. For areas in Southeast Asia, some of these are now being extended out, so they're in lockdown. As an example, this morning we've heard from our India team that the lockdown is going to be extended to the 3rd of May. And also alongside that, though, they haven't implemented that the agricultural services can now be reopened. So really important that somebody in your organisation is checking these government advisories, not only at a regional level, but also within country, because these are going to affect your BCP. We've worked very closely with our supply chain. We understand now about masks, hand sanitizers, disinfecting fluids, where they're mandated in country. And this is just a snapshot from our mask table. We've looked at where, you know, we've got local supply, we've had to export, import, and we are having daily calls with our supply chain. So when we look at respond and recovery, Sarah's going to take you through recovery, looking at lessons learned for China. And just to mention that it's really important to plan for the scenario that you will have a contaminated site. It's inevitable. So somewhere in your facility will be an employee, a contractor, or visitor who will be either highly suspected case or will be later confirmed. Very important to pre-plan. Really talk to your landlords if you're a tenant. Understand, for example, how is a person evacuated from your building? Is there a holding area? Who needs to be trained? What PPE is required? And what protocol of communication is going to be for your workforce and or your contractors and for the rest of tenants in your facility. We also have had cases where we've had to do some contact tracing. This will vary depending on the country, and we have protocols around that. But as I say, Sarah is going to take you through in more detail the recovery phase. So hopefully this has been a bit insightful for you, looking at our COVID-19 protocols from an organisational perspective. And I want to hand over to Ling, who's going to take you through the managing the wellness and well-being and a little bit about our COVID-19 training. So over to you, Ling.
Hi, hello everyone, I'm Ling. I'm going to discuss how we manage our staff wellness during the pandemic of COVID-19. So during the pandemic of COVID-19, there are many of countries and cities were locked down, and our company has implemented flexible working policy. The mode of working has been changed from very traditional office one to a remote working. So staying at home for a long time and the change of the working mode may impose a lot of adverse effects to our staff. So keeping our staff safe, healthy, and happy, and in the same time to assist them to resolve the problem they may encounter are always our top priority. So let's see what we have done to maintain our staff wellness. So we keep sharing the health and well-being tips to our staff to let them know what is the difference between working in an office and working at home. What are the impacts, and to provide some simple and easy follow tips to uplift their wellness and their working efficiency during at home. So prolonged staying at home and the pandemic situations may also making our staff become stressed or even feeling depressed. So this is especially will have a greater impact for those staff who are under quarantine conditions or under the effect of lockdown by the local government. So keeping our staff psychological healthy is important to enable them to cope with this challenge due to this pandemic. In this regard, we have invited psychology expertise to deliver training sessions to our staff to enhance their positive thinking approach in order to deal with the stress and the anxiety they may encounter. The training also provides some practical skills and exercise for our staff too. So working remotely is not just impact wellness of our staff. The change of the working environments will make a lot of like technical issues, management problems, and leadership difficulties. So we believe that if there is insufficient resources provided to our staff, it will also making our staff become so stressed or maybe frustrated during working at home. So we have immediately lined up with our learning and development department and also our IT team to provide a set of training and internet resources to our staff through our internal training system. I will provide the detail in later page. So we understand that our staff may face different circumstances in this tough time and really need someone to talk to. Reducing of social connections may make people with lesser opportunity to talk to their close or loved one, their friends, for example. Our company employee assistance programs becomes playing a significant role for that. Throughout the period, we keep promoting the EAP and reminding our staff to contact EAP in every of our email message sent and any chance of remote connection if they are needed. Our EAP is a 24 hours hotline, which is supported by our very professional psychology experts. They will also active contact those staff and making referrals to other professional services if it is required. Next page, please. As I've been mentioned in the previous page, working at home is different from your working in the office. So let's see what they are, how they affect your wellness, and how we could cope with them. So one of the big difference between working at home and working in the office is we will have lesser chance for communications. So we recommend in this period, all business leaders to hold, for example, a weekly update or a touchdown with the team to enhance the communications. And very, excuse me, very important area, people team, which is our HR department, will actively contact those staff who are under quarantine and under a lockdown situations to ensure they are safe and well, and also showing our care to them. So did you gain weight lately? So it is a very common that you will have less exercise during this period. The comfort and more relaxing home environment makes you keep eating snacks during the working at home. So we keep promoting and reminding our staff to keep exercising at home and also keep away from unhealthy snacks. Excuse me. For example, we have held virtual exercise classes and providing some healthy recipes for our staff to achieve that. You may think that working at home must be more advantage compared to working in the office, right? This is not completely true. You may be affected by your family members' activity during at home, or maybe you will more easily to work overtime or in odd time during at home. So we encourage our staff to separate a designated working environment at home, develop a daily plans, apply the same working hours as in office, and even dress like working in office to minimize the impact during working at home. Next page, please. Next page, please. Next, yeah. So as I said before, we have set up a tools in our internal training system. So what is the designated resources we have prepared for our staff to cope with the difficulties they may encounter during working at home? So we sorted them into 7 criteria. They include the resources and training to help staff to solve technical problems, keeping staff psychologically healthy, providing solutions to leaders that how to remotely manage and lead their team. In this package, we also develop a more informal communication channels to let our staff to share their feelings during this period. So that's the end of my part. Thank you so much. I will pass the time to Sarah. She will be talking about the preparedness and the actions that we have to before returning to the workplace. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Ling, and hello and welcome. So my part in this presentation is to talk about returning to the workplace. So most of the parts that have been covered still apply now when returning to the workplace. So all the good work that has done in terms of pandemic preparedness, forecasting, using government alerts and information to generate your pandemic plans is vitally important now when the business premises go back. So when reopening facilities and returning back to normal, the general piece of advice that I can give you is it should be slow, it should be considered, measured responses that are taken. You need to think about the safety of employees and ensuring you're compliant with government requirements, because we have found, depending on which country you are in, the optics and the advice that is given can be slightly different. So it requires careful planning and for you to understand clearly what the government rules are and what the evidence is required for demonstrating adequate cleaning and startup requirements are met. But this also includes understanding people aspects and cultural expectations within country, so that not only your building controls are implemented safely, but staff have visible confidence and are able to return to work in an environment that they feel safe. So there is a clear change management piece to be considered, as well as individuals who will have to adapt to some office changes, particularly things like access control requirements and also self-cleaning arrangements to ensure occupant safety. And in flexible work arrangements, there is some redesignation to fixed desking, which we have seen and applied across the business. There's also a change management piece to be done with property owners to help them understand that they have to adapt a level of flexibility and a level of forecasting and engagement to ensure that, you know, as things change, as government advice changes, as there are peaks in cases, they are able to react and willing to react to those changes, because it can quite simply mean that one day you're open and the next day you may need to close. Similarly, you need to reinforce when you're opening buildings that procedures for dealing with suspected and confirmed cases are still followed. So we have clear guidance that has been developed in what do you do when you are greeted with a confirmed case? What do you do if an individual is a suspected case? So those procedures still need to be maintained and in place to make sure that you can reoccupy those buildings and make sure if anything changes, you can react. So in Asia, if I'm honest, China is our most stabilized market, and it still remains our most stabilized market. So this is the area that I'm going to focus on and explain over the next couple of slides, what we have done with the China marketplace and our property portfolios in this area. So next page, please, Hazel. So looking at the hard services scope to start with, going back into a building, we need to make sure that there is clear disinfection, cleaning, and that we understand how the HVAC systems and air conditioning systems will work within a building. And we've had to understand what the government requirements are. So quite simply, this can be looking at how HVAC systems are run, what their capabilities are, and what you can achieve. So from a China perspective, there's been a hard focus on making sure that fresh air fans are running for at least 2 hours before offices open, and that they are also run 2 hours after offices close. There's been a higher demand for increasing fresh air, and there is also a requirement to evidence and be sure that there is no leakage and there's no system faults, and a thorough deep cleaning of any filtration and systems required before you even open a building. Simple things like keeping toilet exhaust fans on continuously have been expected, and also running staircase pressurization fans and in lifts as well, so that those fans are kept kept on. From a building occupations point of view, we've had to also repeat water quality tests, make sure building water tanks are emptied, and remind staff to ensure that fire certifications are in date, but also think ahead about, you know, what in 8 weeks, what's due in 10 weeks, and have you still got suppliers that can come to site and service that vital equipment? And if not, what is the backup plan? From a soft services point of view, we've needed to make sure that we've maintained office segregation, that there's separation distances in the offices, and that those desks have adequate signage and individuals are clear on where they're going in the offices. So other things that we have put in place are making sure that staff are communicated with before they reoccupy an office, that they understand how they will use the office space. So some teams are now working in split teams. There'll be an A and B team, and that will make sure that if anyone is, you know, contacted or becomes a suspected case, there is another backup team that can be used. And then the normal kind of rotation process is a weekly split. Okay, next slide, please, Hazel. Okay. What we have also done is make sure that cleaning is visible. So staff need to be comfortable in the office that cleaning is taking place. The frequency of cleaning that happens in a building is varied, if I'm honest, and it will depend on the levels of occupation, the users in that building, and the size and the layout of the building. So it's very important to engage with your clients and to understand what the needs and the expectations are. As a minimum, we have been clear to say that all touch points need cleaning. So lift buttons, door handles, handrails on staircases, and also making sure that staff have access to their own cleaning materials. So additional hand sanitizing wipes, making sure that there is regular refills of soaps and dispensers in toilets and wash basins, so that they can be used without, you know, any anxieties around access to good hand washing supplies. We've also encouraged people to maintain clear and uncluttered desks, and implemented physical removal of items to an area to make sure that the cleaners can clean and disinfect. Simple things that we've had to do as well. Normally, property managers would prefer you to clean in the evenings, but with the increase in frequencies, for example, say from once a day to twice a day to sometimes even 4 times a day, we've made sure that those cleaners are visible, but also that they have had training in where to clean, how to clean, and what to do. So simple things like mice, keypads, those type of things. If they're in an office that's flexible working, they could get cleaned. If they are personal issue, then they have been allocated to the own individual user rather than maintaining or leaving items out on a desk. So those type of changes have had to be put in place as well. Okay, next slide, please, Hazel. From a soft services point of view, we've had to look at catering establishments as well, and look at how we manage cleaning and practices around there to ensure social distancing, because this is one of the topics that has remained a vital element to recovery, to make sure that we can maintain social distancing in how we operate and use the premises. So to avoid queuing at canteens, some locations have used lunch boxes, so a pre-order system, and staff will then just grab and take their lunch back to a desk, rather than congregating in you know, places where they can eat their food together. We've also increased the level of cleaning and disinfection. So again, you know, throughout a canteen area, there is an increased level of cleaning and disinfection, so that if there's any food wastage, water spillages, or, you know, high throw flows of staff, there is regular cleaning that has done. And where we can't achieve that, you can see in the first picture there, we put in physical separation and screening. So hopefully that gives you a flavour of some of the practical measures that we have put in place. From From a recovery point of view, clear things that we do need to do is have a waste management process. Typically, surgical face masks have been used throughout the APAC region. Now, from a CBRE point of view, we haven't mandated the use of the surgical face mask in the office. But generally what we have found is people would prefer to wear, as a minimum, wear a surgical face mask to and from the office for their own personal comfort. And some individuals would prefer to continue to wear that face mask in a day. So I think that was one of the questions that was asked in the Q&A. So hopefully that answers that question. But it does leave us with a problem that we do need to make sure that we have a disposal method for those masks. So typically a mask that is used in general usage will go into a designated bin for surgical masks. If, however, we contact in one of our office spaces a suspected or confirmed case, we tend to deal with that via hazardous waste so that we have a procedure for dealing with that. And again, all these things from a personal hygiene and worker well-being point of view that need to be managed and staff need to take ownership of, they need to be communicated and staff educated once we're in that recovery phase. You know, and it's just the same as being in the prevention phase. Those things are educated, but now as people come back into the office, they are reinforced. So currently these things are becoming BAU. And similar with the cafe layouts and arrangements. So we've made changes to those arrangements, increased the amount of hand sanitizers and dispensers that are available. And we've also added in non-touch garbage and recycling receptacles. From a futures point of view, we expect these things to stay. And we expect from a property management point of view that those things will become expected common practice. From a washrooms point of view, as I've mentioned before, we still need to reinforce good hygiene practice. So making sure that staff know who to communicate and where to report if they find an issue, and making sure that we have touchless soap dispensers. That's become a particular need and high demand item from our properties. And again, it's no touch garbage, recyclables and receptacles. So again, from a futures point of view, we expect to see that there'll be an increase in demand for toilet and washroom facilities. So that now covers what we've been doing to maintain the buildings from a recovery point of view, but we still need to cover how we get staff safely to site. So from a staff transport point of view, particularly in China, there is a high usage of public transport and also group travel to and from business sites. So what we have had to do is think about how we get people to site safely and what are the controls that we need to put in place. So we have done bus disinfections. We have made sure bus drivers have cleaning products and make sure that before and after individuals getting on buses, all the touch points are cleaned. So that means driver's handles, driver's wheel, and some of the arms on the chairs as well. All of that needs to be pre-cleaned before it is reused to transport any further passengers. And there is a checklist that goes with that. Together with, once you came off that bus, there are some additional controls to get into the building. Okay, next slide, please, Hazel. Okay, so once we're at site, we need to have safe access controls. And again, there's still a high level of expectation that we will adopt temperature screening and we will monitor employees who are bringing visitors to the office. So generally from a CBRE perspective at the moment, we are still restricting visitor access to our offices, and some of our clients are still proceeding to do the same. Where visitors are allowed into the buildings, we do have a visitors health screening and declaration form, which asks them to confirm if they have been traveling anywhere overseas within the last 14 days. And then our staff on site, receptionists, security guards, anyone on site is empowered to stop them entering the site and to follow an escalation process. So along with our general procedures, we have given staff guideline on what the expected protocol should be. And every site is then asked to work with their FMs, with their building managers on what the site specific process and procedures are. So there are clear escalation points and clear communication points. So that brings me on to the final slide of today, which is where do we capture all this great information that we have put together? So there is a lot of information to cover, from soft services, hard services, people management, welfare. And what we have done at CBRE is we have put together basically a playbook for resuming operations. And this covers all the guidelines that we would expect and the best practices from across the region. So the book is given to our account directors and senior staff members for deployment within their own specific accounts. It gives them the guidance and the mechanisms and the tools to start engagement sessions and to start to understand how to mitigate and prepare for recovery in their sites. Okay, so that's my second to final slide. So what's going to happen next? So I've had a lot of questions to say, where do we think this is going to go? So from a futures of work point of view, there are definitely going to be changes. I can see that there's going to be a less demand for individuals to be interacting. So there'll be a high expectation that we will maintain aspects of social distancing. So there'll be increases in demands for robotic cleaning, using virtual reality platforms to provide building tours and inspections to, stop the need for direct people-to-people contact. There'll be an expectation that we will continue with temperature measurements. So thermal imaging scanners will become part of BAU from a safety and security point of view at the entrances to buildings. And from an office space point of view, there'll be an increase in demand for technology. So additional uses of switches, motion-based sensors, and technical systems to be deployed that will have a less reliance on staff and people management. Cafeterias, I expect there to be use of smarter technology. So rather than paying for food, there'll be swipe tokens or swipe cards that we'll use. And again, for car parking as well, we will expect to see automated parking sensors instead of manual zones. We've also had requests and seen coming through that there's been requests for use of disinfection tunnels. I don't know too much about the disinfection tunnels, but my general kind of view on these is that there's going to be a higher level of expectation and research done on the use of disinfection tunnels, and they will become a part of our future work. From a cleaning standpoint, there's a heavy use of bleach and other chemicals that are recommended now from a cleaning and disinfection point of view. And I believe that will continue to be expected as part of general cleaning practices to maintain those cleaning standards that have been applied. Okay. So guys, that's the end of my session. So I'd like to thank you for joining today. And I believe we've got some Q&A questions that have come through.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, we do. We have actually quite an overwhelming amount of QA come through. So I'm just going to start asking some questions of Sarah and myself and Ling as well. So Ling, a question for you that's come through about construction sites. So a lot of the construction sites have been closed. And what would you advise, or what's the key requirements to think about when you're reopening up a construction project or site?
Okay, I think that this is very important. I think the most difficulties that construction industry may encounter is there will be a lot of workers and people then you need to manage. I think this is very important, is make sure the temperature screening and then the travel history, then this kind of information you could be gathered properly in a very quick, in a very short time. And then this is unlike a simple office. So for construction industry, for usually a construction site, there will be 100 or thousands numbers of workers. If we are using thermometers, that is manually, that is one by one. I got the experience from my ex-colleagues that usually takes 2 or 3 hours. That is the most important. You need to
consider. And also because I would say construction industry is a very labor-intensive working environment. So need to review is the workers' facility, for example, their cafeteria locations, the space, and also their resting locations. Make sure that this could keep the minimum social distancing. I think this is the things that I think about at this moment, and I hope this is help.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. That's really helpful. And as you say, it's different to an office environment with the high volumes of staff on site. Sarah, moving on to you. I mean, obviously you mentioned about what you think the future looks like. There's quite a few questions come through about home working. What's your opinion on whether we'll go back to full capacity in our offices and whether home working will remain?
Yeah, thanks, Hazel. That's a good question. I mean, at the moment, if I'm honest, a lot of our properties in China are about 75% capacity at the moment. And across the region, we're probably around 25 to 30% in those locations that have gone back to work. I predict that there will be a need and an expectation for more office space and for more distances between desks. So there will be a need for either businesses to increase and take on more floors in tenanted buildings, or there will be a high demand and need for people to continue to work at home if that becomes common practice. So generally, I think that more companies will need to adopt home working policies, and provisions will need to be made to allow people to have that flexibility. From a services point of view, from CBRE, I suspect that there'll be a lot more clients expecting CBRE to either provide office space to staff or to have home working requirements in and to have staff come to service their properties on a supply and demand basis.
Thanks, Sarah. That's really good, insightful. There's another question come through which I'll take. It's asking whether there is one site where we can view the latest government restrictions. And I suppose I'd like to say yes, but there isn't. So I think, you know, it's really important if you do have a CMT, a crisis management team, that there is one person on that team is really nominated to have the insight into the government advisories. And that's almost a full-time job for us at the present time. We also are looking within CBRE that we have within each country the ability to tap into our local crisis management team that is able to give us those updates. We do have an external vendor that is providing those government updates on a daily basis, but however, even within the last 12 hours, they're already out of date. So it is an ongoing situation. CBRE, you know, does have access to external vendors, but it is a very difficult situation to keep on top of. There are some government sites which are good to look at, and I do have a list which I can share with anybody who would like that, which has links directly into the local authorities where you can get that information from. So thank you for that question. Another question that's come through, which I'll pose to Sarah, it's about pregnant workers and what your recommendation is around pregnant workers.
Thanks, Hazel. I think generally for pregnant workers, they would be classed, we tend to in CBRE take the WHO definitions for vulnerable worker. So that is a status that we have taken across the whole of APAC. And we've worked quite closely with our people teams on how we will deal with vulnerable workers. So particularly, perhaps if I take two examples, if we have a suspected or a confirmed case in the office, those individuals are given, you know, an automatic right to start working from home, and they are talked to, particularly if they are, you know, near a confirmed case. From a general perspective, it's up to the line manager to have that discussion with the staff member, and you know, if there are concerns or underlying, you know, health or issues, then you know, we would actively allow them to work from home, and there's no, you know, no pressure on them regardless of what decision that they have.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Another question that's come through again, it's about home working, so I'll pose it to you, Ling. The question is, we've got a few workers who've been working from home for a prolonged period now who are struggling. What would your advice be?
Sorry, can you repeat the last sentence, Hazel?
Yeah, sure. So we've got a question come through about prolonged working at home, where employers are now struggling as they've been working from home for a long time. What would your recommendations be to help them?
I think, as I said before, this is quite important. It's like, for example, company can give some initiatives that for the staff. For example, I think this is a very good idea to have some virtual exercise classes, just like the students, they have that one. So it makes some it could drive the people that the staff that are at home, and then will be more cheerful, and then will be a very new experience from them, because I think most of the people will not have a company provided like virtual exercise classes. I think this is a good idea that you maybe try that one, and then I hope that the people will like that too.
Yeah, I think it's that personal interaction, isn't it? And I think, you know, the other thing I would add to that as well is, you know, with managers and supervisors, really important to do video conferencing, not just audio, so they can see you. And I think also having those touch points where it's not just about how, you know, the work, also how are you? I think it is incredibly important through this quite, you know, anxiety provoking time. Thank you, Ling, for that insight. Another question which has come in around cleaning. There's a few questions coming in from cleaning. So Sarah, the question is, what percentage of alcohol are we recommending for hand sanitizers?
So over 70%.
Okay, and then the next question along cleaning as well is, with regards to disinfectant, what percentage are you looking at as well for general cleaning of the office?
You mean using bleach or quartz base or hydrogen peroxide?
Yes.
For bleach?
Bleach,
I think at least I'm Ling. Let me do it, because there are quite a lot of queries from Hong Kong regarding the use of chemicals. I think if it is for bleach, we recommend it is for general cleaning is 1.99%. If it is for some like very frequent use materials, for example, the hand door, the door handle, something like that. There will be 1:49, that one. So if this is very, very highly contained of the virus, for example, the vomits, toilets, and then feces, blood, maybe up to 1:10. So for the quartz base cleansing agent, this is quite difficult to say. I refer to the CDC. It should be a 5 to 10% concentrations of quartz. This very depends on the product's compositions. It's because the commercial products, they usually mixing up with quartz and alcohols together, and there will be very different. I think if it is a commercial product, this is not the only chemicals in the commercial products. For example, as I said, quartz mixed up with alcohols. That one, I would recommend you could ask the supplier to provide you like some laboratory certificate or something to show the effectiveness of. Maybe they are unable to provide the efficiencies on the new coronavirus, because this is relatively new. But I think the similar types, for example, MERS or SARS, they should be able to provide this kind of information to us. So we need to refer to them. This is usually the commercial product will not only sell chemicals. So and additional, I would like to say, I refer to CDC, and hydrogen peroxide is also, I've also seen a lot of questions regarding the use of chemicals other than bleach in the Q&A. I would suggest this is also, you may consider to use the hydrogen peroxide, because this is lower sensitive to human, even it is decomposed or retaining in the environment, because after decompose, the hydrogen peroxide will come into water and oxygen. This is not harmful at all to anybody, even animals. So you may communicate with your vendor, is there any hydrogen peroxide containing disinfectant chemicals, whether they are available. If there is somebody in your workplace, they will have sensitivity for those chemicals, or your clients are concerning about it.
Yeah, so for our clients, I can just step in again. For our clients that won't allow bleach on their sites, which can be a lot of manufacturing places, we have looked at using heat treatment and physical steam cleaning. So that is another option that we have looked at and explored. But Ling's given you a thoroughly comprehensive answer there on the products that we use, so thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Sarah. I think we've really only got time possibly for another maybe 2 questions before we close. So there's one question come in about BCP, which I'll take. So it's asking about essential workers who contract COVID-19 and what should you put in place. So I think if we start with the BCP bit first, I think the most important thing is to identify your essential workers, and where possible, do have that split team approach. So if you can split your team, making sure that you've got that skill set, the competencies that you need to activate the tasks that you need in hand, and split between the 2 teams is really important, because therefore if one essential worker does unfortunately contract COVID-19, it doesn't affect your whole workforce. So as I say, we are basically recommending split teams. If there is a worker that does contract COVID-19, then it is really important to identify when that person was last in the workplace, when the symptoms started. Also important to look at close contacts, those that have been in close contact for 15 minutes or more, because you'll need to support the local authority where applicable for contact tracing. The essential worker does need to be unfortunately quarantined at least for 14 days, ideally returning to work once symptom-free, and with a medical certificate for fitness for duty. As we've seen this unfold across our region, unfortunately, because of the healthcare system being stretched, you don't necessarily get that fitness to work or duties medical certificate. So we have allowed people back as long as they are obviously symptom-free over the 14 days, and we've been monitoring their health closely. So hopefully that answers that question. I think we've really only got time for one more question. There's been a lot around disinfectant and cleaning, but maybe if I just ask something a little bit different. So around going back to masks, Sarah, there's a question coming about medical waste. So when do we need to use biohazard bags for disposal of masks? Can we just have some clarification for that?
Sorry, take myself off mute. So generally, so in some locations, the local governments have directed us on when that we should be putting masks in hazardous waste. So, you know, if that's in-country directed, then that is what we will take from that point of view. From a CBRE perspective, if that's not government mandated, then we've looked at then, you know, the property type, and then we've also looked at, you know, the nature of the business operations as well. So from a general office perspective, none of the masks would be put into hazardous waste. We have just separate receptacles that the face masks will go into, and then they get you know, disposed of via the normal waste routes. If, however, you are a suspected or confirmed case within the building, i.e. someone that feels unwell, then that particular mask would be disposed of via hazardous waste.
That's great. That's great. Thanks for that, Sarah. So we've now come to the hour. So I want to thank everyone for attending this webinar. Hopefully it's been insightful and useful to you. And we wish you all the best for the future, and keep safe. Take care.